I'm known as a spontaneous poet. So I will do this without pause. Bring you a present like Santa Claus, because you know in your home, under the tree, you might find a poem.
Would you ever do a rude poem?
It has happened. I'm not going to do one now for the sake of your
podcast. Family audience.
It absolutely can happen. I don't blush easy. When you do to a whole audience, the beauty of it is bringing all those different personalities together.
Orange, purple, and various other words don't have rhymes.
It ain't necessarily true. There's a hill in Wales just outside Abergavenny called Bloringe. If you don't believe me, look it up. Absolutely true.
Luckily for you.
It's variety.
Now, today's guest is an improvised poet, and he's been practicing that amazing skill for over 3 decades and has performed at events all over the world for such celebrities as the King Nelson Mandela and many others. In addition, he has performed on TV and has also written his own book of poetry. So without more ado, and to find more about improvised poetry, let me introduce you the wonderful Judge the Poet.
Good morning, Adam. How are you?
I am very well. Very good to see you. I am tempted to rhyme all my answers, but I don't think I will.
It's catching, isn't it? Yes.
That won't get us very far. Normally, Judge, I start these podcasts by asking people about their background, but I thought in your case, what we'll do, just so that people get a very quick idea of what improvised poetry is about, is to ask you to give us an example, if you may.
You're probably right, because people won't have met one of me necessarily. So I'm known as a spontaneous poet, which means anyone can say to me any words or ideas. You can pick 2 or 3 completely different things. I then immediately recite a poem that rhymes, makes sense, and features everything that's just been said. Shall we give it a go so everyone can see? Please pick 3 words, phrases, or ideas, whatever comes into your head.
Okay, 3 words, phrases, or ideas. Well, Christmas. We're getting towards Christmas. How about entertainment? As this is a podcast about entertainment. And how about purple?
Oh, okay.
Or pink.
Pink. Okay, so Christmas, purple. No, it's Christmas, entertainment, and pink.
Yes.
So I will do this without pause. Bring you a present like Santa Claus, because you know in your home, under the tree, you might find a poem. Because then I will happily warble, angel star, and also bauble. Because then you know, just between us, you'll have good entertainment for Christmas. It's the occasion to forget trouble and pain, and everyone will try to entertain. So whatever I invent, I hope it adds to your Christmas entertainment. Then your heart will rise and never sink, because I try to leave you in the pink.
Wow! That is truly amazing. It appears as though it was a poem that you knew.
Well, do you know that's the important part? Because I'm sure we'll get on to what improvisation is and so on. But realistically, that adds to the value of the entertainment. But if the poem itself has no merit, if it's not interesting, doesn't tell a story, then what's the point? It'd be a parlor game where you just give me words and I give you rhymes for those words. That is not the point. What people are actually listening to is the story or the idea that's wrapped within the poem, as surely as if it was a pre-written poem. However, the extra fun is you chose the words and it happened in real time.
But in real time. And actually, we'll get on to something else which is of interest, which is AI, and then the creation of stuff which isn't human,
yes,
and how that... But before we get there, let me go backwards, if you don't mind. Your background. Tell me where you're from.
I was born in London, and I lived in London until my early teens. Then I lived in Devon for a few years, and then I went to university in Yorkshire to study English literature.
Where you came across many a poem, I presume.
Well, that's what I studied, or amongst other things, for 3 glorious years. And I then became a spontaneous poet, and it took me around the world for many, many years, and still does.
So you studied English, so a normal 3-year course at university. I presume at that point, you weren't thinking of becoming a poet.
Well, sort of, yes, actually. I knew I wanted to be a writer and performer. I didn't know that I would succeed in creating this role called a spontaneous poet, because I'd never seen one and still haven't, in fact. But it was something I thought I could do. But no, poetry was already my passion, hence doing the studies, which I thoroughly enjoyed. And that clearly fed into my understanding of what it was I went on to do. But I knew I wanted to do something that brought words and poetry to life.
So there was no point in your head where you thought, I don't know, I'm going to advertising or accountancy or something that was a more conventional job, I suppose.
Fortunately, when I started being a traveling spontaneous poet, I was young, free and stupid, and I was able to try.
So you did that straight
from university, absolutely.
Okay, so that's very interesting. So, you go to the careers advisory place and you start at A and it's accountancy, then advertising. When you get to P or even S, there's no spontaneous poet in the. So how did you even think of it as a thing? How did the concept arrive?
Well, the actual idea of improvised poetry is just me. I was making up poems for myself as a child long before I realized everyone else didn't.
So how old were you?
Primary school age. I was already making up poems for my own amusement. Hopefully I've improved, but nevertheless, the actual concept was always there. I didn't know that it was just me. And then as years went by, I realized, no, actually this is, some people can run fast. Some people are musical. This was my thing. This was something I was able to do to express ideas within the form of poetry. So I then worked at it from there. But you're right. You go to the careers office and
yeah, not having that.
If you say you want to be an accountant, in those days, they had a big stack of books of different companies trying to lure you in.
Yes,
exactly so.
Because it wasn't online. They literally had all their prospectuses.
Correct, because they all wanted you. But if you said, I want to be a writer and performer, bless him, he stared at me very blankly. And of course, the irony is that if you want to be an accountant, you can phone up one of those companies and they'll say, come and talk to us. If you want to be a writer performer, you probably need more help. So actually, should it be the job of the careers service to know a little bit more? So anyway.
But I think that's an interesting question. And part of what this podcast is about is if you're young and starting off, whatever it may be, a dancer or a singer or a poet, you do need help because it's not that clear. The pathways are not that clear.
Correct. And in my case, particularly, we'll get onto in a second, how I did it. But particularly in my case, because it hadn't been done before, and it still isn't, as far as I'm aware, not literally what I do. So there isn't even someone to follow. And when you do knock on doors, they go, well, what's that? Why are we interested in that? So yes, you probably do need more help. But the earlier part of the question is, I would say, just try. Just try, particularly if you're young, free and stupid, because it's never too late to get the real job, but it might be too late to go and do the other thing. Once you've got the kids and the mortgage, it's very hard to say, I'm going to stop being an accountant and go and be a one-man band.
Well, it's easier to do it the other way.
Exactly so.
So then tell me, Judge, between having that flash of inspiration, that's something you'd done from a child, improvised poetry, worked on it. Actually, there's a question. Did you have to work at it? Did you have to practice it? Did you have to get better at it, I presume?
Well, yes is the honest answer. I give the comparison usually either of a musician or an athlete. You have a natural bit. I call it 5%, but who knows what it is. But then you have to get up every morning and you have to practice your instrument. You have to go running around the track to find your technique, your style, to improve the way in which you do it. So yes, in the early days particularly, I would be thinking about presentation and style and what I was trying to say and how I wanted to say it. And yes, develop it from there. And how, in terms of making it into a living, it's very basic. I used to knock on doors. I knocked on doors of very small venues, explained to them what I would do, and most of them would say no, but every now and then one would say yes, and I would do a gig for hardly any money at all, and I would somehow live on that hardly any money until the next one, and then it grew from there.
But then you have the skill, which many entertainers don't have but need, which is a bit of a salesman. The confidence to knock on doors, because that's the trouble with most performers. They don't have that.
Yes, which is why I suppose agents and agencies exist and that sort of thing to try and help. But yes, you do have to. It's a very different thread to the bow. In fact, again, all performing. You could be an excellent, should we say, poet, but weren't able to present your material to an audience. I gather the very best jugglers and magicians in the world wouldn't actually fill a theatre because they're brilliant at their skill, but you need this whole different
that's
side.
right. So I've had this conversation with magicians.
Yeah.
There's two aspects to it. There's the technical skill,
Correct.
and there's the performance ability, and the very best of them have
Correct.
both.
And you shouldn't be ashamed of that, I think, because again, I've been doing this for many years. I always say there are two kinds of people you see on stage. There are some people who just want to be on stage, and they'll do whatever it takes for the attention that they get through being on stage. The second category, which I think I'd put myself into, is there's something you want to say, something you want to do, something you're good at, and the only way to do it is by being on stage. So you have to learn that separate set of skills. You have to learn presentation in order for the world to see what it is that you have come up with.
Is a moment that you would think is your first big break, something that changed the dynamic of what you were doing?
Interestingly, I can't think of a single moment. I think it was a snowball. I think it was starting in small venues, getting to slightly bigger ones, and then the next thing you know, you're getting a phone call from the other side of the world inviting you over. Again, I think mine is particular because, yes, you know what a magician is, you know what a singer is. They might be presenting differently, they might have better tricks, they might have different songs, but you know what they are. When you say spontaneous poet, well, who needs one? Until they've seen it, they don't know. So I think virtually all of my progression has been word of mouth. And people have seen, think, oh, we could use that over there. And then fortunately, the venues got bigger and the pay packet too.
The pay packet. And you do, from what I know, both intimate going around groups of people, but also on stage.
Correct.
As an act on a stage.
Correct.
Which do you prefer?
I like both. They are different. In the same way that every venue and audience are different, it's a different thing. When you're going around to smaller groups, close up, like you'd have a magician or something, you can focus very much on the personality of that small group. For example, if it's a private event, like a wedding or a birthday, the table with the grandparents has a very different vibe from the table with the best friends. And I'm able to feed into that and create something exactly for them that's right for that occasion.
So you would tailor the tone of the poem?
Every single poem is tailored to the moment.
Would you ever do a rude poem?
It has happened. I'm not going to do one now for the sake of your
for
the sake of your podcast.
Family audience.
It absolutely can happen.
But do people ever? I presume they do, because often you might be a party where people are slightly inebriated for one and choose words which, let's say, not that appropriate words.
I don't blush easy. We're fine.
But would you use the word?
If people aren't videoing,
which nowadays is almost everyone.
Exactly so. But the other half to your previous question, when you do to a whole audience, the beauty of it is bringing all those different personalities together. The material is always created to fit the mood and the moment and the audience. But when you have a mixed audience, if you can find a way to entertain them all, interest them all, tell a story that unites them all, that's a beautiful thing. They arrive as strangers and leave as friends because something magical, which is the beauty of variety and live entertainment.
And that's, I was going to say, that is the beauty. And
correct.
Without trying to get on my political hobby horse, I do think the arts in general and entertainment is much undervalued by government. For example,
absolutely.
We spend so much time emphasizing STEM subjects, for example, which of course are important, but so's art.
Oh, absolutely. And well, for what it's worth, dear government, it makes a fortune for this country.
Well, yes, and that's the other thing. It's not just some sort of...
They're not doing anyone a favour.
No.
Books and films and TV programmes make a fortune for UK PLC.
Then why do you think it's sort of slightly looked down upon for those people who aren't quite able enough to do...
I think it is short-sightedness. I don't want to use the word prejudice, but they assume, because they could see that your science and technology makes something that you can sell and there's the money, they value that, the immediacy of that. But realistically, your ultimate technologist or scientist, what do they do when they go home? They watch movies. They read books. They listen to music. So everybody's actually consuming the arts for all the right reasons that we might get onto. But yes, people don't immediately see how it turns into pounds and pence. It's only life.
Yes. And then that's why also, going back to what we previously said, all those STEM subjects, jobs, again, there's a sort of a clear pathway and everyone knows what it is. You know, it might not be that easy, but if you decide that you want to become a performer, it's hard. And also, unless you are very famous, it is a challenge. It's an ongoing challenge.
Absolutely. I mean, I think in the early stages, it is almost like a test because those who aren't absolutely committed to wanting to do it will fall away quite quickly.
And I'm sure, in a way, that's the key skill. It's the resilience and the persistence.
You've got, yes.
Yeah. Because I have spoken to a number of people who do give it up. Because,
absolutely.
And particularly with COVID, when COVID happened, lots of people just thought, I can't be doing with this anymore. I need something that gives me stability. And that's the one thing you don't really have.
Correct.
Is stability.
Well, yes, it is true. I mean, I think you reach a certain stage where you kind of know you're probably okay, but you do have to have that passion where you really want to do something, whether it's poetry, magic, music, whatever it might be. You have to have that inner passion that keeps you going, because there will be moments, absolutely, when you go, it would have been easier to be an accountant.
Yes. Slightly more boring.
Oh, absolutely. I wouldn't last a week.
Yes. I spoke to the woman, Catherine Arnold, who is an aerial artist, who literally had to choose between a bank and a circus. Literally, I had to make that choice. And she ran away to the circus, which I think...
Famously, John Major did it the other way around.
John Major did it the other way around.
Go figure. Go figure.
Well, go figure. Well, politics is a bit of a circus anyway, but
there you go. Yes.
We won't touch upon that. Can I ask you, you must, in performing, come across, of course, people of different nationalities and cultures. How does that affect what you do?
It doesn't, in the sense that, as I said earlier, literally, no one believes this, but it's true. Every single show is created according to who I'm talking to and what the moment is. If someone else gave me the same words as you gave me, but they were a different person in a different context, the whole poem would have been different and the feel of it. So that applies at every level. So every show, every audience is different. There's sort of a mind reading that goes on. You try and tune in to what the atmosphere is and create accordingly. So yes, if it's a different culture, that will still apply. You can sense what would be appropriate in this environment as the poem. If English is not their first language, well, you quickly discover at which level they do speak English, and I create the poem accordingly.
Can you do it in other languages?
Well, I thought you might ask that. I'm going to say no. However, I do sometimes incorporate foreign words into the English poem. In my very early days, my French isn't bad. I used to try in French, but the level at which I would create wouldn't be the same. So for the sake of professional standards, I'm going to say no.
Is there sort of a structure when you do an improvised poem? Like, is the rhyme scheme or the meter always the same?
It doesn't have to be, but I have a chosen favorite style, in the same way that, again, if you had a musician, they might be a country music player and they play within that genre. As we know, Shakespeare wrote 37 plays in the same meter and rhyme pattern. And I choose that I have my own chosen rhyme pattern and meter that I like to use because I find it's easy for the audience to take in. Because bear in mind, they're hearing a real poem, but they're hearing it for the first time in real time.
So there has to be, be accessible enough, doesn't it?
So if I won't make it technical, I have a roughly 8-syllable 4-beat rhyming couplet thing going on. Now, I can personally change that, but I don't, because that is my chosen genre.
That makes sense. I bet people try and trick you by choosing difficult words.
Which is part of the fun. In fact, the show evolves, whether it's rounds of close-up or a show from the stage. At first, obviously, everyone's going to try and trick me, come up with the weirdest and most wonderful concept, the strangest word, and that's fine. It's part of the game, and I'll still put it into the poem. But then actually people get through that, and I'd really like to hear a poem about, let's say we've got the grandparents' table again. Well, let's have a poem about the grandkids. And as all poetry can be on lots of different subjects, so then we explore the different types and feels of poetry, even though they're improvised. So yes, people can and do try and catch me out, and that's absolutely fine. But once they get over the fact that I can do it, instead they start thinking about things they'd really like to hear poems about.
And that's true Are there particular words that you would find are hard to rhyme?
Not necessarily. I mean, there are some famous ones that are hard to rhyme. There are certain words that people always come up with. Aardvark is one of them because it's hard to spell. It's actually very easy to rhyme. I'm sure you can think of several rhymes for arc. But anyway.
Yeah, arc.
Exactly. The arc part of aardvark. Yeah. So there are just certain words that people come up with. But generally, no, I'm happy to take any word. And sometimes people even come up with words I've never heard of. And I just say to them, could you please define that for me? And once they
okay, so they create words that don't exist.
Oh, well, or else it's just literally. I know more words than most, but I don't know all words, particularly if they're technical or something.
Yeah, scientific word. Yeah.
So, but if they'll tell me what that means, I'll still put it in the poem. It's not a problem.
Oranges.
Yes.
I mean, when I grew up, so my father used to, because my father wasn't a poet, but he used to write a lot, and he always used to tell me that orange, purple, and various other words don't have rhymes. And I presume other people believe that to be the case.
This does come up, This does come up. Yes, every schoolboy knows. The fact is, it ain't necessarily true. There's a hill in Wales, just outside Abergavenny, called Bloringe. If you don't believe me, look it up. Absolutely
Luckily
true.
for you.
Luckily for me. There's a podcast called Nothing Rhymes with Oranges. I think there's a whole song or video of Eminem dealing with this.
Dealing with oranges.
And also, when you're speaking a poem, it's very different from when it's written. So if I just gave you the inge part of orange, you could think of several rhymes.
Yeah,
hinge, door hinge, lozenge.
Yeah, lozenge.
So it's not exactly a myth, but it's not far off.
That's true. There was that song where you just slightly change the pronunciation of a word.
Yes.
And then you can make it rhymable.
There you go. As they say, you have to put the emphasis on the right syllable.
The emphasis, that's very true. And of course, the great thing about language is you can do whatever you want with it because it's sort of...
And it is, as we touched on at the very beginning, it's only part of the game. I mean, yes, the game is, I will make it rhyme. As we all know, not all poems have to rhyme, but it is part of the game. The more important part, as we said at the beginning, is the story. It is the idea. So yes, we'll make it rhyme, but I'm not going to get too fixated on
but
that.
Rhyming's interesting, isn't it? It's like, do poems have... Well, poems clearly don't have to rhyme, but there is a clear sort of a satisfaction in a rhyme,
Absolutely.
Isn't it?
The beauty of poetry. I mean, I could do a whole TED talk on this. The beauty of poetry is the musicality. It's the well-chosen words. It's the rhythm. Some people say it's like the heartbeat. There's a reason why those advertising jingles use rhyme. It gets into your head. In terms of poetry, it gets into your heart much more because of the rhythm and the sound and the rhyme. It has an appeal. As surely as a small child loves hearing a rhyming storybook, even if they don't understand it. They just like the sound. They like the rhythm. It's satisfying. Now, obviously, for us grown-ups, you also incorporate ideas and stories or amusement or whatever it is you're trying to achieve. But the genre needs the rhythm, and the rhyme helps that.
Can I talk to you, actually, in general terms about poetry?
Yes.
My issue always at poetry at school and at university, I did French and German, so I did a lot of, couldn't understand a word of it, I had to translate. But anyway, particularly at school, we treated poetry as though it was some sort of riddle that needed solving.
Yeah.
You had to work out what it meant.
Yes.
And as you get older, you realize actually that's not what you should be doing. You should, you don't work out what music means. If you listen to Beethoven's whatever, you don't try and work out what it means. You just feel it or listen to it.
I agree, unless you are going to be a practitioner. Because obviously, if you're going to be a musician, you need to know, or write music, you sort of might need to know. Some people are just naturally talented.
Yeah.
But you might need to know how it works. But you're absolutely right. Poetry often has an image problem, which I've spent the last 3 decades trying to undo, because of the way it's taught in school.
So one of my favourite poets was Gerard Manley Hopkins.
It's beautiful stuff.
And he used to say, read me with your ear rather than your eye.
Correct.
So it's the sound rather than the meaning, in a way.
Well,
I mean, obviously it's both.
I think it is both. But you are right in the way it's studied. I think a lot of the image problem of poetry is the way it's taught in school. Wordsworth said, we murder to dissect. So by the time we pulled it apart,
I think that's another way of.
It's no longer what it was. It's no longer what it was.
It's all the parts.
Correct.
It's the rhyming scheme.
I had a friend at university who studied art, and he used to say the same thing. He said we'd spend all this time taking things apart, but we don't put them back together again. So yes, you're analysing the constituent parts. I did French A-level. and I remember studying Molière, and we
I hate
studied
Molière.
we exactly
I hate
we
Molière.
tore it all apart. And then one day I went home and I read it by myself, and I laughed.
You didn't.
They forgot to,
I'd never laugh.
but they forgot to tell me it was funny.
Well,
we were so busy studying the social background and the
Yes.
use of a comma
Yes.
that they forgot to tell me it was a comedy.
Yes. And that's the same with poetry. You spend so long working out the
Correct.
ellipses or various other parts of
Correct.
speech that you forget. And you know what I do like are the poems on the underground,
Yes.
because you just sit there and you try not to work out what, and just, I think that's a great
for all
thing.
these years, I have very humbly called myself an ambassador for poetry for all these reasons, because so many people are put off. And accessibility is what we're talking about. And the poems on the underground are obviously accessible, both in terms of they're there in front of you, but also the ones they choose are ones that people can tune into.
And also they tend to be, they're not too elitist. I mean,
Yes.
there are a few sort of classic poets, but there are a lot of sort of different types of styles of poem, which I think is
And I
important.
think over generations, the issue of the division between, should we say, entertainment and art, poetry and other forms of entertainment has sort of got bigger, and it need not have done. I mean, Shakespeare was watched by the man in the street, woman in the street. They went to, and then everybody can take it because it was entertaining, there was a good story, and it was nice to listen to. And then each person can go as far as they want with the integral parts of the philosophy. And I like to think poetry, there's something for everyone.
No, I think that's right. But I think also for a long time, poetry was perceived or certainly taught as sort of quite white and quite middle class.
Yes.
And sort of all your, Coleridge and Wordsworth and all your, whereas hopefully now there's much more diversity in terms
I agree.
of...
There's because every culture has its own version.
Yes. And I
And-
presume rap, at its
Yes.
essence, is poetry spoken.
There's a meeting point.
There's a meeting
I would
point.
say there's a meeting point. There are different rules for rap compared to poetry. There's a lot of repetition and half rhyme. There's a different beat, but that's all technical. But there's certainly a point where, this sounds pejorative, but the best rap meets poetry. Put it that way.
Okay, a question then.
Yes.
Your favourite poem?
I thought you might ask
I
this.
did.
It varies every day, as surely as someone's favourite song
Yes,
varies.
it's a bit of a naff question
But-
to be asked, but anyway.
Today, I will pick Ode to the West Wind by Percy Bysshe Shelley. Actually, I'll tell you why I picked him.
Yes.
Because I like poetry of all different eras, all different styles. I always think Shelley needs to be a little further up the pantheon of famous poets than he is. I mean, he's known, obviously, but I think he needs to be a little
He's very
further
high
up. So I give him a plug.
But that's in itself is quite interesting, isn't it? It's how and when people are famous. I mean, it's like with music, is that Mozart wasn't famous, and why certain things become of the moment and others drop off. And
Gerard Manley Hopkins wasn't published in his own lifetime. And then
Yeah.
you quoted about him just now. So yes, it's an interesting arena for, I think, arts in general. You know, where
Well, no,
I think
I do.
Van Gogh sold one painting.
Exactly, it's not necessary. It's not necessary here now. Can I ask then about you and fame?
Yes.
Do you want to be famous?
Again, I get asked that quite a lot because obviously I am known in certain circuits. My honest answer goes back to the thing about why are you on stage? Are you on stage so everyone looks at you, or is it because you have something to say and you have to be on stage to do it? In my case, there's something I'm trying to do. I'm trying to do a thing with poetry, for poetry and with poetry. But obviously, the more people who see that, the better, because that's what I'm doing it for. So not fame for fame's sake, that's for sure. But if ever more people could read my books, see my shows, then obviously I'd be very happy. I'm not complaining. I'm making a living and I'm doing what I love doing, and plenty of people are seeing it.
Well, which is
So only if it meant more people got it.
See, for me, this podcast is interviewing people who are very successful in what they do, but are not famous. And by definition, the majority of people who earn livings in entertainment are not Taylor Swift. They're not big names. They're just
Yes.
relatively normal. Not that I'm saying you're normal.
No. But it's not, as you know, not always the best who do get the fame and the money. You know, it's not necessarily the best actor who's getting the most amount of money. It's not necessarily the best singer who's at the top of the charts.
That's true. But even that's a question. What does the best singer mean? Because you
Well,
could
yes.
argue the best singer means the most successful singer. You could look at it the
You
other.
could, unless you were a music student, and you might say, well, actually, their voice is more successful than their voice, or something like that, or the originality of the music they're
Well, that's true.
creating, or
I
something
mean,
like that.
If you take, this is going completely off piste. If you take someone like Maria Callas, who
Yes.
did not have the world's most beautiful voice, but she had an incredibly distinctive voice.
Correct. Well, I suppose, yes, that's a whole different conversation about how things work. And yes, it is to do with emotion and
it's
passion.
to do with emotion, isn't it?
Emotion, passion, soul.
And communication.
Yes.
And that's what you're doing in poetry is about. And that's actually, if you get down to entertainment at its essence, that's what it is.
Well, it's about moving the audience.
Yes,
and
emotionally.
You can be moving the audience through the sheer quality of your voice or the way in which you use your voice and present songs. Again, magicians, it's not always the one who has the most skill. It's the one who can entertain an audience with the skill that they have. That's who people want to see, obviously.
No, definitely. Right, now, listen, Judge, this is going to be a bit of a tricky bit for me, right?
Okay.
Because on these podcasts, and I've seen them, I try and get the guest to teach me something. So I'm going to attempt to do an improvised poem, which is likely to go horribly wrong, but you must bear with me. So first of all, can you give me some tips?
Well, I can. I must admit, I do hold poetry workshops, and I'll say this in advance. I have yet to find a human being who can't write a poem. Believe it or not, whether it's a child or the CEO of a big company, everyone can. They just don't know they can. However, that's a whole workshop. It's not an
No, that's true. Sorry, before we even go, I've got another question. Is how do you define a poem?
Now that's a whole podcast.
A whole podcast. Yes.
I'm gonna slightly duck it by saying T.S. Eliot said, "A poem is the best words in the best order."
As opposed to Eric Morecambe, who said the song was all the right notes, but in the wrong order.
Oh, yes, exactly. He's playing all the right notes, but not necessarily in the right order. So when I do the workshops, I say to everybody, you will write a poem by the end. Now, some people have only written a 2-line poem, and others have written the whole page, but they've all proved to themselves they can do it. However, what we're doing now, obviously, is more of a spontaneous thing, and I can't guarantee that you're going to come up with something amazing, but I can give you a couple of threads of advice.
Yes, give me some threads of advice.
One is let it happen. Don't
think about it too much.
Grown-ups particularly. Kids, if you say, tell me something amazing, that they've got a blue monster on Mars before you've even thought about it. Grown-ups will go, I don't know what to say. So just let it happen. Trust yourself and your instincts. And also, as we said earlier, it's not just about the rhyming. It's not about the keywords. It's about the story that you want to tell at that moment using those words.
Okay. So you're going to give me 3 words.
I've got to think of 3 words.
Oh, see, no, you haven't done this before, have you?
Okay. I'll just pick 3 random words if you want.
Yeah.
Water.
Yes.
Variety.
Yes.
And prestidigitation.
Prestidigitation. Okay. Now, prestidigitation is a very complicated word. It means for many people something quite absurd. It involves magic, I believe. Magic for the son or for the daughter, or indeed for anyone drinking water. I can't now remember the 3rd word you gave me. Can you give me a tip? What was it, please?
Variety.
It was variety, which rhymes with me. Exactly. Thank
you. I'm not sure it all made sense, but it was beautiful.
No, but I poetry. Well, does it need? Well, yes.
Well, do you know,
it does need to make sense.
Here's another thing, touching back on some of the things we've said. When people say, because of school or whatever, I don't like poetry, I say to them, that's like saying you don't like music. What is music? You might not like classical, but you might like jazz. You might not like rock, but you might like hip hop. There is something for everyone. But poetry, somehow, people think it's only Wordsworth and Flowers and Clouds. They only think it's this, as you were saying earlier, this elite thing. But it isn't. Poetry is whatever you make it. And so find the style and the version that you like, whether it's to read or to write. And if that's non-rhyming flows of consciousness, that's poetry.
Yeah, no, I quite agree. Everyone's talking about AI at the moment. And I presume if I put in those 3 words you gave me into AI and asked them to write a poem that was rhyming, it would.
It would, but it wouldn't know you. It wouldn't know this room. It wouldn't know what we were talking about. As I said earlier, if you gave me the same 3 words, somebody else gave me the same 3 words, a different context, they'd get a different poem. AI, it can pretend, but it doesn't have empathy. It doesn't have compassion. It can't read a room. And that's exactly what we live entertainers do. Now, in my particular case, completely, the show is different according to the vibe, the atmosphere in the room. AI doesn't know anything about any of that. And that is the beauty of being a human. It is the beauty of what we do in live entertainment. And AI can pretend, but it can't do that.
And I would agree, certainly at the moment, across all types of entertainment, it's the humanity of it
Absolutely.
that makes it so impactful. And something else you were saying before, also the jeopardy, the potential for failure is you don't want to go in knowing that it's going to be absolutely perfect. You hope it is. You go in knowing that things could go wrong. And we've all been to major things where where was I last week where the revolving stage stopped working.
You're right, it is an entertainment, and improvisation is the epitome of that, because you've given me these words, even I haven't heard them. Who knows, it might go horribly wrong. It gives an extra edge to what's going on. But two things, it's not only entertainment. If you go and watch a live sport game, you don't want to know what the result is.
No,
it's
exactly
the live in the moment. And also, it's not only the performers. It is people. It's real life. After COVID, do you remember we had 2 years sitting at home?
I remember that very well.
Talking to a screen.
Yes.
When I used to turn up to live events after COVID, there was a buzz in the room before the show even started. People needed people.
Yeah.
People just needed to be in real space
and do you
time.
remember there was that time that a football match was played to no audience, no spectators? It was completely different. So it is true that the important thing isn't just the performer, it's the audience. And of course, the audience itself changes.
Correct. So every show is different because of the audience. Any actor will tell you they can rehearse a play for 6 months, but the first night is different because audience laughs in different places and the energy is different. So yes, absolutely. There is an invisible magic that scientists haven't yet quite pinned down that's called being alive. And that's what we celebrate when we are with other people and doing other things.
So that's a celebration of being alive. I think that's quite good definition. Can I ask, in all the gigs you've done, there must have been times when things have gone wrong?
Well, I haven't yet had one where either I couldn't win the audience over because, as I say, I adapt the style. I know some very good acts who have found an audience that they just don't click. Whereas in my case, I can just adapt. So generally, I would say I get away with it from that point of view because it's so adaptable. I mean, I can genuinely only think of one example where I was on stage in Berlin, in fact, and it was probably a bit too late at night to put me on. And there was somebody with just off their face and they came up onto the stage and security had to remove them. but generally, I think I'm sort of lucky. I mean, we both know people who have a script that they've been using for like 15, 20 years and they don't change a word or a pause. And that means they can bump into a wall every now and then because it just doesn't work. Whereas in mine, okay, I can take it up a gear or down a gear.
Depending.
Exactly.
Yeah, depending. Judge, this has been absolutely fascinating. If you wouldn't mind, just to sort of, to conclude, if you could sort of summate, that's a word.
With great pleasure. Would you like to pick 2 or 3 words or ideas that have come up during this conversation? And I'll make a poem based upon your recollection of our little chat.
Yes.
What words or ideas? 2 or 3. You don't have to overthink it. What comes back into your mind about what we have been talking about?
Well, poetry.
Yes.
AI. And can we get back to variety again?
Yes. AI, poetry, and variety. You should go there. Well, you know it is official. This is intelligence, but it's not artificial. We do our best to entertain because we have heart and soul as well as brain. So that's the way that it will be. I'll open doors through poetry. And you find that you can say, let's open hearts and minds in our special way. Because I will shout it high as a steeple. It's about real things happening for real people. And we'll do our best for society, bringing poetry to our variety.
Brilliant, Judge. Thank you.
Pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you so much for being a guest today. So that was Judge the Poet on today's episode of Variety. If you enjoyed this episode, do come and see us on our social channels on YouTube and Instagram and TikTok. Also, for any young performers out there who might want some advice in any aspects of their career, be it in training or audition technique, or ways to market themselves, and advice on the various ways of earning a living, do contact us in the contact field in the show notes, and we'll get back to all of you. Well, either we will, or if we don't know the answer, we will put you in contact with someone else, as we want as many people as possible to earn successful livings and lives within this marvelous world of entertainment. So until the next episode, thank you very much.